Hey everyone, Jason here, and I'm back with another Nano Coaster video. Today we're going to be doing Thunderbolt from Kennywood. This is my second Nano Coaster from Kennywood. The first was Steel Curtain. This is a model that was the first model offered by the park. However, it was quickly discontinued and returned to CoasterDynamix, and they sold them on their website. And it's the only model I've ever purchased without riding the actual ride. And so I bought it and I assembled it back then before I had a YouTube channel. And finally, last month I was able to make this my 400th coaster. So I don't have a video on this one. It's also not available at the park. But I do have Thunderbolt now that I'll be assembling, and then also Phantom's Revenge will be up next. So Thunderbolt is an old wood coaster. It's actually a model I wasn't originally planning on getting. But something really interesting happened when I rode Thunderbolt. If you've ever been to Kennywood, you know that they don't allow single riders on this ride. And so I actually had the skip the line. I can't remember what their fast pass system is called. And so I went up there, I was the only person, and I told them I was a single rider. That I said, okay, we'll find someone to pair you with. They turned around to the next group, and it was a group of 3, and they're like, oh, perfect, they put us together. And so the individual that I was sitting with noticed I was wearing an El Toro shirt. I was like, oh, a coaster enthusiast. Have you ever heard of nano coasters? And I said, yeah, I have a lot of them. And he said, oh, I'm Jack Reimer, the owner of CoasterDynamix. I make all the nano coasters. And so we spent quite a while talking about some of the stuff they're working on and about their products. And I felt like if you ride a coaster with the creator of a nano coaster, then you have to get that nano coaster in order to commemorate that ride. And so here we are gonna do Thunderbolt. So let's jump right in. So in the box, we actually have 2 base plates, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We have 1 sheet of track and a double-sided sheet of instructions. So when I first opened this box, I saw the 2 base plates. You can notice they're slightly different. And initially my first thought was, this is a mistake. One of these is cut wrong. The other one doesn't have the track layout on it. What's going on here? And then I looked at the instructions and realized that they'd actually done something really cool with this model that I've never seen before. So this coaster, along with a lot of the other coasters at Kennywood, uses the terrain a lot. And so it's actually designed that you can stack the 2 base plates together, and then when the coaster goes down underground, it actually creates terrain here and goes under acrylic, I guess. And so it's going to create kind of a stacked effect. So let's jump right into putting this together. So the first step with any of these nano coasters is going to be first to remove this white plastic from the top and bottom of each of the acrylic bases. So like I said, there are 2 acrylic bases here. And so to do this, you'll just want to put your finger underneath the corner and peel it up. The top is going to have the full track layout etched into it, and so this is going to come off in multiple pieces. But the bottom, it should come off pretty much in one piece. And then the second base plate, I believe both sides should come off in one piece. It has a little bit of the track layout etched into it, but just a straight line. So there we have both base plates revealed. Now if you've seen my other videos, you know something I like to do is I like to add an extra logo to the base plate. The kit does come with a metal sign. However, I like to have something a little bit bigger that's easier to see, and so I've cut out the Thunderbolt logo here with vinyl. If this is something you're interested in doing, I do have an SVG of the Thunderbolt logo down below that you can just cut out with any type of vinyl cutter. I have a Cricut. So I'm just going to quickly peel up this vinyl, apply it to the base plate, and then we'll move on. So there you can see we've applied the logo here to the base plate. This is to the base plate that goes on top. So this is the one that has the narrower portion. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that's kind of what the logo looks like. So the next step with any nano coaster is going to be to cut out the pieces here. I like to use a pair of flush edge wire cutters. If you look at the instructions, the tip sheet, it tells you to use nail clippers. They probably work as well. The flush edge wire cutters I feel get really close, and if you have a good pair, then it'll cut through this pretty simply. So I'm just going to go around each of the elements here and cut on these little tabs as close to the element as you can, so that you don't have the little nubs. You can kind of trim them off if you want. Also, I'm noticing right now the station building for this one's actually a little bit different, also due to the terrain. So that's going to be, probably actually because of the dual base plate. It has to go through both of them. So that makes sense. So I'm just going to quickly go around each of the pieces here, cut them out, get them all laid up, and then we'll proceed at that point. So now that we have all the track pieces cut out, it's time to begin assembly here. So as I mentioned, there are two base plates. There's one here that has a wider cutout and one that's a little bit fatter here. So this one with the narrower portion goes on top with the track etching in it. You'll also notice this one has track etching just in two places right here. That is the top of that one, so you want to make sure it goes the same way. So you'll just kind of line these up, and you'll notice that the slots and stuff in the base plates will also line up as you do that. Right now we're going to have to be very careful to hold these together while we do the assembly. Once we have a few of the track pieces in, I think it'll hold together on its own. So step one is aligning the base plates. Step two is going to be this piece of track here. And so this one is, I believe, probably goes into the station area. It does not go into the station area. No, it does. It starts in the station and then goes around. So I think this is the brake run after a final drop. And so this is actually going to go on the far edge, actually over. This one's actually kind of cool. So the metal is actually going to hang out over the edge of the base plate. In the middle, it's not going to actually be touching the base plate. And so for this, we're going to line up these tabs and push them down in. Now, like I said, with these first couple, it may be a little bit difficult to press them in because you're lining up two base plates. At the end here, we're also going to bend this around and put this other slot down into place. In fact, I'm going to start with just one base plate to get these lined up, just to make this hopefully a little bit easier. So there you can kind of see the first track piece there through the first base plate. You can see it comes way out here. So now that we have the first track piece there, we're going to take the second one and line it up over those same tabs and get it to line up and push down as well. Now once you have everything there, we can just come underneath and we'll fold the tabs over. You want to make sure as you do this that you don't cover up any other holes. There are a couple of these that are pretty close kind of to the edge, and so they're you kind of have to fold them, but then they're getting close to other holes. But we'll just bend these over and get them out of the way, and then we'll come back up on top and just shape it. And so there you can kind of see the terrain element. So that's the first piece installed. Like I said, you can see there's a gap there between the track and the base plate, hopefully. But yeah, that's what your first piece is going to look like. So step three, which is our second track piece, is going to be this one here. It's the smallest one with the mostly straight on the two ends and the dip in the middle. So this one's actually going to continue right out of the station here, right where we left off. So this one we're going to try to line up. There's also going to be a curve at the end, and this has to actually curve inside of the track. So I'm actually just going to come on here before I press it all the way down and do a little bit of pre-bending right where it needs to be. I don't always like to pre-bend, but sometimes you kind of have to. So there, I kind of have it pre-bent there, kind of have the track piece roughed into where it's going to be. And now I just have to kind of work it through these slots. With this being the double layer, also it's not cut perfectly well. It's not the easiest to press down into the base plate. And so you kind of have to work it a little bit. So occasionally these base plates aren't cut out very good, and then it's good to use some type of blade to kind of get the excess plastic out of there. So an X-Acto knife or razor blade, this is just a Harbor Freight 50-cent razor blade. I don't know how much they are. They're pretty cheap. But you can kind of just come in here and clean out where you're going to be putting the pieces in. Yeah, this one's not cut exceptionally well in certain areas, and so there's definitely a lot of excess plastic in there. And when it's like that, you can't just push the pieces down in like you should be able to. So for that piece, we should have it cleared out. Now I bent the piece a little bit. Don't want to be careful with this. So now we should just be able to hopefully pop it down into these slots. And then once we have it pressed all the way down, we can once again bend over the 3 tabs underneath to hold it into place. And then come back up on top, make sure that our curve looks nice. Make sure that the straight sections are still straight. Like down in these dips, it's very fragile. And if you don't get it just right, it'll bend as you are putting the piece in. But that's going to complete piece number 2. So step 4, piece number 3, is going to be the lift into the first drop. And so this piece is going to have a little bit of bending as well. It's going to continue right off the second piece we did there. First thing I'm going to do is check each of these gaps, or each of these slots this one is going to be going into. The first 2 are pretty clean, the second 2 are not. So once again, just going to kind of force this razor blade down in there. So when they're cut out well, the razor blade should slide right in. So when you have to give a little bit of extra effort there, it shows that it's not cut well. So like I said, this is going to continue right where we left off though. It's going to be a small tab there. This is once again going to be off of the base plate. And so there's a slot on each end of the little gap. There's a little cut here that's going to hop over the track. And then right after that, we're going to bend into the first drop. For this, this is where bending is actually pretty nice on these wood structures. With the lattice, it takes a little bit more effort to bend it, but you also get a little bit cleaner bends. So I can just kind of bend it with my fingers just naturally as we follow the base plate. Now that we have that first drop kind of drop back in, I got to come back and get these first 2 to line up again. There's a lot of really tight track pieces here with this one. And then once that's all there, we'll bend over the tabs. And then once again, come up on top, make sure everything looks like it's straight. Make sure our turn looks just right. And that's going to complete the 3rd track piece. So step 5 is going to have this piece here. This one's easy to figure out because there's actually 2 places it's going to jump over the track. This is the only one that has 2 places that jump over the track that are spaced out. There's one other one that has 2 right next to each other. This one has 2 that are pretty spaced out. And so this one is actually going to connect to the first piece that we did. So not off of what we just did, but back to the first piece. And so this one is going to start with this end that has the medium tab and then a really narrow tab. So this medium tab is going to actually connect right where we were, and then it's going to immediately go from there into a turn. So once again, I'm going to do a little bit of pre-bending here. I'm just going to kind of wrap this around my finger and try to line these 2 tabs up. There's also going to be a slight bend down here as it hops over the track, and so for this one I'm going to try to do a little bit of a pre-bend as well. Also need to check to make sure each of my little holes here are cut out perfectly. This one looks like it needs to be cut out. I don't know why occasionally, this is probably the worst one I've ever had. Occasionally these are just not cut out very good, but I've never had one that was cut out this poorly. But like I said, you just kind of have to deal with it, go through and clean it out. So now that we have those ready, I should be able to just drop this piece in. Like I said, it's going to continue off of that first piece that we did. And so I'm going to line up those first 2 tabs with the base plate and push them down in. And then down at the other end, we'll also line up the rest of these tabs. And then once we have it all pressed in, need to bend over these tabs again to hold it into place. And then once again, come up on top and just make sure everything is shaped right. This one, more than the other ones, I feel like I struggled with, and as such I bent it a little bit in places I didn't want it to be bent. But you can kind of just come in here and just kind of mold it to be exactly where you want it. This straight piece bent here a little bit ways I didn't want it to, and this turn here with the tunnel didn't bend perfectly. But that is going to complete track piece number 4, I believe. So track piece number 5, step number 6 is going to be this piece here, and it's going to continue right where we left off. So this is going to be a pretty wide turn. So it's going to continue at the part that doesn't have the cutout. So the cutout's going to be at the end. For this, I'm just going to kind of, once again, pre-bend it around just loosely. This one, I don't know exactly how it's going to be, but it does have to curve, and it's going within the lift hill. And so we can just kind of bend it around this way, just kind of into a C shape. And now, as we go to the base plate, we should be able to just line it up and then continue bending it into the shape that we need. And then once we have it in place, we'll once again bend over the tabs to hold this one. And then once again come back on top and just kind of follow the track layout on the base plate and make sure that it's following it perfectly. And that's going to complete step number 6, track piece number 5. So the final track piece is going to be the final track piece. The one with the hill, the 2 cutouts there, and this is going to continue off of that piece and connect it to the first drop. So for this, I'm actually think I'm going to start here at the first drop end. So the 2 cutouts are going to hop over the track closer to the last piece we did. And so I'm going to just kind of start there and then just kind of bend it around. We can put the second little tab into the slot and then just continue bending this around. May need to do a little bit of a pre-bend here at the end. This one's going to be a little bit rough to get in there. This coaster is actually one of the more difficult nano coasters I've ever done. But I think we can get everything lined up here. Now once again, as you get it all pressed down, you want to bend over these tabs to hold it. This is another piece that I'm going to have to do quite a bit of shaping on after I get it in. Actually, maybe not. There is one hard kink here in this turn that I don't like, so I'm just going to kind of take my fingers and mold it. And I just bent it the other way. But that is going to be the final track piece. So the final step is going to be to add the station as well as the little sign. So most of these stations, including this one, is a little house. However, this one has a little bit of added height to it due to the double base plate and also being on a terrain. So we're going to fold this house into its little house shape, and then we can just put this down in where the station goes. So we'll just drop this through the 2 slots. Bend it into shape, and then the last piece is going to be the little sign here that goes here on the front. Once again, this has a little bit of extra depth added to it, deeper base plate, it's 2 plates. We'll put it on, bend over the sign, and bend it backwards. And so that's going to complete the Thunderbolt kit from Kennywood. Like I said, probably the most difficult nano coaster I've ever assembled, but it's very cool. I love the way they do the terrain. So you'll notice the black edges on here on the track. They usually do terrain that way, but with the added terrain, this one they actually chose to do the double base plate, as well as going off of the base plate completely, which is something I've never seen before, but definitely a cool model. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you know something I like to add is a felt bottom to these. So this is an adhesive felt that I got from Amazon. And so for this, I like to just kind of line up the model with the adhesive felt, and then I'll use a pen or a pencil to kind of go around it. This one's actually going to be a little bit more difficult, once again, because the base plate is, the track doesn't all go over the base plate, but I don't want the adhesive felt to come under the parts of track that aren't on the base plate. So I just kind of had to trace inside of it, and then we'll have to follow it inside. So with this, I'm going to now take my scissors and cut just inside of the markings. You don't want to have any excess felt. It's a lot easier if you have it just a little bit smaller than the base plate rather than a little bit larger. If it's a little bit larger, then you have overhang. It doesn't look quite as nice. You can trim it up a little bit, but it's just easier if you don't. So I'm just going to cut about 1/8 of an inch inside of where we've traced here. So that's the second coaster I've gotten out of this piece of felt. Might get a third one out of it as well, we'll see. Once we have this, we can pill up a little bit of the paper backing here. I'm going to do it on the wider end. I'm going to pill up probably about 1/3 of it and tear it off. And then we'll just take the Nano coaster on top and push down. Make sure it's covering up all of that felt. Once we have that, we can peel away the remainder of the paper and then just kind of use the table and our hands here to make sure it all lines up. Press it down, and there we have the felt on the bottom. So now those tabs that we folded over are not exposed at all. We can slide this around on the table and it's good to go. So this kit is available from Kennywood for $34.99. May be eligible for some season pass discounts. I don't know. I don't have a pass to Kennywood. Overall, a really cool model for a pretty cool coaster that came with a great story. Once again, you got to ride this with the creator of the Nano coaster, and so this is a great model to commemorate it, and it's my second Kennywood model here that I have. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more Nano coaster cutout videos, as well as anything else I want to share, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching and have a great day.